Okay, so welcome everybody. Great Monday morning, although a little bit miserable. Today I'm going to talk to you about the whole school approach to mental health. And what we mean by the whole school approach is actually looking at the culture within the school. So the whole school approach to mental health is used a lot by DFE, Public Health England, and this term is used quite a lot to look at how we can support the school community's mental health. Unfortunately, there hasn't been a definition of what the whole school approach is, and therefore I created a definition based on the evidence base that's out there, but also our clinical experience of working in schools to help them with this approach that we use. So it is really important that the whole school and the culture is built upon empathy and relationships, and also evidence-based practice. So what I say is actually relationships at the heart of everything that you do. So you could have the best psychologist, the best therapist, the best teacher. However, if there's no student-teacher relationship, this is where this falls. It has to be based within evidence-based practice. So any interventions that you're using, and we recommend trauma, attachment-based, and also embedded neuroscience. These approaches are important that they're embedded within the curriculum, policies and procedures within your school. So this is where we look at policies and procedures to create some flexibility so that they are supportive of students with social, emotional, mental health difficulties. And one of the policies that most often comes up is something like the behaviour policy. So what we say is there something like a 70-30 split, where 70% you use the policy and 30% there's some flexibility within the policy that takes into account children's needs. It also needs to be inclusive. So here we're not talking about an approach that is reactive. We're not waiting for children or for staff to become mentally unwell. We're actually looking at an early intervention approach and a culture that supports everybody's mental health. It needs to be flexible, and it also needs to be responsive to communities' mental health needs. So as we know, every school is unique and it's different, and you all have your own challenges and you all are on your own journeys around mental health. Therefore, other schools, what one school is doing is not necessarily going to work for every school. So it's really important to remember that this is a journey that you go on, and everybody's own journey is going to take a different amount of time. So if you've got a mental health lead role, or if you're looking to appoint a mental health lead role, just a couple of pointers I've got. If remember, it's a strategic role. They need to have a seat at the table. They need to be able to influence decisions. The reason for this is that when decisions are made or anything around policies or the school or leadership team meeting, there needs to be a perspective around mental health. And the mental health lead role isn't for them to do everything. Remember, it's a strategic role, so what they're doing is actually coordinating other people's within the team. So if it's about embedding mental health into the curriculum, you're looking to liaise with somebody who's taking a lead on teaching and learning, for example. If it's around linking mental health and safeguarding practices together, then you're leading with the safeguarding lead, the designated safeguarding lead. This also requires some protected time. This isn't just a role that you can give to somebody because they're passionate about it, or they're also doing another job that might link to mental health. So we most often see designated safeguarding leads or SENCOs or pastoral leads taking this role. So just remember the qualities that you're looking for. It is a strategic role, particularly if you want to create a culture. And by creating this culture, you're looking at sustainability. So the importance around this is that your strategy isn't based upon one person, and they also need to be able to access resources. So I'm going to show you EduPod, which is an online platform that I've created, which enables schools to access professional resources, and it's also more affordable than you bringing in a qualified psychologist to support you with this. There's an accreditation process attached to EduPod, and it's 3 stages. And we're not interested in measuring you at the end of the journey. We're interested in supporting you along the journey. So the first kite mark is committed. Can you demonstrate that your governors, your senior leadership team, your head teacher is on board of this approach? Then you move to achieving and excelling. So let's take a look inside EduPod. So when you log into EduPod, you'll see something a bit like this, and I describe this as a bit like Facebook. So this is your feed section. It gives you a summary. EduPod is built upon these 5 principles, and they're in this order for a reason. If your school isn't ready and motivated, the rest of the work can't happen. If your leadership and strategy, the foundations of the school, don't include mental health, then the rest has a knock-on effect. So when you come into EduPod, you'll start off with the self-assessment audit tool. Now, this self-assessment audit tool is based upon the recommendations from Public Health England, Department for Education, and also our experience of working directly within schools. So here you've got a number of prescriptive statements, and they are prescriptive because you either have them or you don't. This then helps you form your action plan. So you will see here as well, there's little icons with additional information, and you basically rag rate yourself. You can also add notes in here, which is really helpful because when you start to log your journey and do a review of this, you've got the information. And also if you show Ofsted, for example, the journey, they're able to see what you have got and also what you're working on. It's really important to be open and honest about this as well, because remember, this is a journey. It's up to you who you share it with. But what we know about Ofsted is actually they're interested in the journey. They're not interested in just seeing the end sparkling result. In leadership and strategy, you've also got the vision. So what we see quite often is that there's a group of people in the school that have got a vision around mental health, but it hasn't been communicated. As a result, your student, your governors, your senior leadership team, your staff, your parents are not really sure what's going on. And particularly if you implement some flexibility within your policies, a lot of the time you're going to get, well, I did that and then this other person did this and they got away with it, or why is it different for them? And what I describe it as, it's a bit like going to the GP. If I go to the GP and Andy goes to the GP, Andy goes in first, I don't expect to get the same treatment and outcome as what Andy got. The same applies to mental health. The same applies to your behaviour policies and safeguarding policies, because everybody's got individual needs. Therefore, if we can communicate this with our students, with our staff, our parents, it actually helps this process to embed, because actually then you stop this, well, it's not fair conversation going on. You've also got then here about your policies and procedures. So if you have got procedures such as detentions and exclusions and zero days, make sure that they're continuously reviewed, and are they doing what you wanted them to do originally, and is there scope for them to have some leeway in them? You've also got things around mental health lead. Do they have access to support? What we've seen around staff recruitment as well is that, do you include your vision, and do you include in the selection process mental health related questions? The reason for this is you want to bring people and attract people who are actually signed up to supporting the community's mental health. There are people that don't believe that mental health exists or that it's the school's role to support people's mental health. If you get people like that working within the school and your vision is very different to what they value, you get this unconscious sabotage going on, and it makes it really difficult to feel like you remember the journey, so you have to bring everybody on board with you. So once you've completed the self-assessment tool, you've also got pre-generated surveys in here. It's important to capture everybody's voices. So you've got primary and secondary students, staff, caregivers and governors. You can literally just copy a link and send it out to everybody. They open up that link and it takes them to this page, which gives them a bit of information about its anonymous information, and it's optional to take part. And this then, they read the statements and tick what they agree. Now this statements, there's 10 statements, and each statement links back to one of the principles in the self-assessment audit tool. They submit the survey, and what happens then, all that data comes back into EduPod. You've also got a space here to enter in statistics. So you're looking at the impact the whole school approach is having on attendance, exclusions, educational healthcare plans, number of external referrals. The reason for this is, remember, it's evidence-based. We need to see the impact it's having on the rest of the data. And this is data that you're already collecting. Once you've completed your audit tool, you'll be able to go into the results dashboard. You'll be able to see your results here. So based on each principle, you'll see your survey results as well, and you'll also see your action plan breakdown, which I'll come on to. You can also do a deep dive into your data. You can also download the report by PDF, so if you want to share it with anybody. You can also compare as well your reviews that you've done. Following on this, the EduPod Pro version, so this is EduPod Tracker. The EduPod Pro comes with action planning. You click on your assessment tool and you can access recommended actions by us. These are based upon your results from your self-assessment audit. So if you, for example, thought about student-teacher relationships was an action plan you wanted to work on, here it tells you some action plans that action steps that we'd recommend. You add it into your task, and then here it is that it comes into student relationship. You can then tick off when you've completed action steps. You can also change the task status. You can also leave notes for each other, and you can also assign the tasks to people to do. Finally, we've got a host of learning resources. So it's important that we implement our action plans. So we film best practice, and there's over 100 resources on here, and we keep adding to this. So for example, if you was interested in understanding more about the mental health lead role,
but it's a really good question. Who should be the mental health lead? My first answer to that is that they have to have a passion for it. This is not a bog standard teaching role, and this is a role which is all about a very particular type of pastoral support. So a real passion and
that gives you an idea. So there's hundreds of resources on there, and we also run webinars as well, at least 2 a month by experts. So we've got some on child exploitation coming up on the festive season. Some extra nuggets of information. So for example, the action plan. It's really important you share the action plan with the school community. People need to know what's going on, but you don't want people to be able to edit it. So you can share it here by giving them the link, copy the link, put it into a URL box, and the action plan will appear. They can deep dive into it, and they can see what's going on and what you've done. So EduPod is basically a one-stop shop for mental health leads and for your team. So it's not about one person. So you can have up to 7 users on EduPod. So you can support each other with the implementation of the whole school approach to mental health. Thanks, Andy. I think that's just a minute before. So we can take questions.
Thanks, Asha. That's really impressive timing, and set us off on a really good foot here. Now, what I did say right at the very beginning, just in case people who come into the call halfway through didn't hear it, is that if you are a schools advisory service client, or you have a wellness and protect policy with NAHT, or you're a member of Forum Strategy, then we have some licenses for EduPod to be able to share with you for free. I'm going to give you my email address, and if you are interested in having one of those licenses, Asha will take you through how to set it up, how to use it, and get full value out of it. My email address is andy.mellor, MELLOR, at uk-sas.co.uk. And I'll get back to you as soon as you email me. Just to let you know, in the chat bar, Danny's put a link to the National Wellbeing Partnership, which we've been building since the beginning of lockdown. It was my intention to try and get out and meet some of our wellbeing partners, but we've done it virtually. We've got just under 60 different providers on there. So please have a look at that and see if there's anything in there that, when you've done an audit of what your school needs, whether there's anything in there that will help servicing that need. Across it and you think actually we could do with something that's not on there, please let me know, and I'll go out of my way to try and find a provider that can meet that need, because there's no interest in this in terms of financial interest with SAS in this. This is purely about doing the right thing and trying to provide schools with the wherewithal to access all of these providers under one roof. If you want to find out more about EduPod, Asha's put a link in the chat bar, and I've had a message here as well to say put my email address into the chat bar, and I will do that as well. Probably do that when we move on to the next session. Are there any questions for Asha before we let Asha go? If you have any questions, please put them in the chat bar. What I would say is, just to back up something Asha said right at the very beginning, is that I think when I was ahead until Christmas, and I think I felt, or I distinctly got the feeling that the government's mental health first aider scheme was really about finding somebody in school who could do that work, and it's sort of box ticked in many ways once that's been done. If it's going to have full, enduring, sustainable and efficient impact, it has to be a strategic role. It has to be a role that draws everybody else in. And in many ways, I view the role of a mental health lead or well-being lead in schools a bit like the safeguarding lead. It's safeguarding lead's job to make sure that everybody in school is fully aware of safeguarding and the safeguarding requirements. In the same way, it's everybody's responsibility in school to support children, pupils' mental health and well-being. So, do see it as a strategic role. I think that's a really key point that Asha brought up, and it really is everybody's responsibility. We don't seem to have any further questions, Asha. Is there anything finally, Asha, you'd like to say before you dial out?
I guess the other thing for EduPod is that you do get access to our clinical psychologist team. So EduPod members do also access consultation. So we don't just leave you with EduPod, we will get in touch with you and you can contact our team for any consultation that you need. So it's really important to access professional support alongside this as well.
Right, that's brilliant. Thanks, Asha.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, we're going to move on to our second presentation this morning. And I came across Gemma and Liz probably about 6 or 7 months ago now, and liaised mainly with Liz, I think it was, around their organisation called Grow Your Mindset. And the title of this presentation is Grow Your Mindset will explain how they can provide accredited training and highly engaging workshops for both education staff and children that will positively improve mindsets and impact on well-being as a whole school culture. And this is an interesting one, because this actually cuts across staff training, but is mainly about children's well-being. And I have to say, as the head of a school that requires improvement, back in December 2013, it was working with the children on their mindset, developing pupil autonomy, that was really key in driving our school forward. And just over 2 years later, we found ourselves being told we were outstanding, and a lot of that wasn't about the data kind of looked after itself. But if we have children and staff in a really good place in terms of their mental health and well-being, it's not rocket science to know that things will improve. So I'm going to hand over to you now, Gemma. I think Gemma's with us. Are you there, Gemma?
Yes, I am here. I've had to relocate down towards my Wi-Fi box because my Wi-Fi is playing up. But I am here, so excuse the background that you've got, but I didn't want to miss out. Let me just share my screen. Liz is here as well. She'll be chatting with us in a minute. But nice to meet everybody. My name's Gemma Sanchez, and you can see in the photo my colleague Liz. Cronshaw. We are both former primary teachers who left the classroom back in 2018 after 25 years between us. I know we look pretty good for our age, but basically we left after being totally inspired by a journey that we've gone on, very similar to Andy's in our own school, around this theory of growth mindset. And it was that inspiration that led us to develop Grow Your Mindset. So now what we do is we motivate, we inspire educational settings and also businesses and individuals to allow them to thrive and be the best version of themselves. We've worked with businesses such as the Cooperative Banking Group and the Body Shop. We've just been awarded most reputable training provider for the Northwest. We're now looking to go nationwide with that in the next year or two. We've become finalists with the Creative Business for the Rosendale Awards, finalist of Small Business of the Year as well, and we've got our first children's book coming out on the 1st of December, which we're really excited about. And we're now taking on gym associates so that we can carry out our work up and down the United Kingdom. So I thought we'd just show you a little bit of a video just to introduce us even further.
Okay, thank you. For some reason the music didn't come along with that, but that's giving you a little bit of an idea of what our presence in school may look like. Now, the research and work of Carol Dweck is what we have based our programmes on. Okay, so the work that we do in educational settings is around her principles of fixed and growth mindset. Now, Carol Dweck hasn't created mindset. Mindsets have always been around, always have been, always will be. We've all got one. But what she has done is create a platform for mindset in the world of business, in the world of education, and in the world of sport. And by creating that platform, she's starting point of the journey. And by coining the terms fixed and growth mindset, she's provided clarity and direction and a starting point of choice. And that's what developing mindset and the programs that we develop are around, is that element of choice between our fixed and our growth mindset and moving ourselves to become more growth orientated over time. So what we've done, we've worked across many settings since 2017 when we launched Grow Your Mindset. Can we have the next slide, Gem? Sorry. So we've worked across lots of settings, and what we've done is we've recognised the main character traits and behaviours and focuses within our fixed mindset. So what we want you to do is just have a little think about the following. And do you have staff or children in your school who lack in self-belief, fear making mistakes, prefer to stay in their comfort zones, see feedback as a personal criticism, seek perfectionism, who find it difficult to manage emotions, and have low levels of resilience? Okay, now I mentioned earlier that it's about an element of choice, and that's where the journey begins, and connecting with our fixed mindset. And these are all character traits, behaviours and actions of when we do have our fixed mindset come out to play. But actually connecting with our fixed mindset isn't a shameful admission, okay? It's understanding how our fixed mindset holds us back, especially in terms of learning. And when we start to develop our mindset to become more growth orientated, it changes our perception and it changes our understanding of what learning actually looks, sounds and feels like. Now, it says at the bottom that growth mindset is the foundation for learning. So whatever we build on that foundation will be more powerful. And then what we've noticed is the shift for ourselves as adult learners, but also the children that we work with, that shift in focus towards their growth mindset then has that positive impact on mental health and well-being.
So in terms of what we do, all our staff training is now fully certified by the CPD certification service, which means you'll be awarded CPD points as well as get your name in flashing lights on a certificate as well. But it's that trust that you know that you're going to get really good quality training from us. We've got altogether 10 hours of staff training, and it is a bit of a journey in terms of what we offer. And it's all about you achieving and to try and develop a growth mindset culture throughout your school, right from the very first class, whether you're in reception or whether it's year 7, whichever educational setting you may be in, right up into the final years of that educational setting. It's about that sustainability and about that approach throughout all the classes. So the first session that we look at, Gym Hub 1, is about understanding growth and fixed mindsets, and it's really unpicking what that actually means. There's an awful lot out there on social media, on Pinterest, saying what it means, but actually there's a few misconceptions out there as well. So it's clarifying what growth and fixed mindset looks, sounds and feels like. And it's not actually looking at it with the children at this point. It's about looking at yourself, which can be a little bit of a challenge. It can be a little bit uncomfortable, but like Liz just said at the start of the journey, because unless we are walking the walk and talking the talk, the children won't do it either. So it's about developing that through the school. So lots of reflection activities upon yourself, and looking at how you can get friendly with your fixed mindset and develop even further. And also the importance of it. We go into that a lot further too. Gym Hub 2, which is the next 3 hours of our training, this is all about language, which plays a humongous role in the development of the culture within your educational setting. What we say to the children, what we say to our staff and colleagues, and how they speak to us as well. Even in going down to what we put in our marking or what we put in reports. So it's thinking about language as a whole, how we approach that as a staff, what changes do we need to make, what things are we doing well, what things could we be doing better. And then we also look at learning and performance zones. Now, we haven't got time to talk about what they actually mean, but actually really looking at what the learning zone is, because essentially that is what school and education is all about. It's that learning zone experience, whereas a lot of children and staff actually feel more like they're in the performance zone for the majority of the time. So it's looking at the reasons why that is, and again, trying to make sustainable changes to make that happen. And then the final section of our training is 3, and this is really looking at all the myths and misconceptions, because it's now that you're going to be starting to think about applying this theory into your classroom. And if you're going to go onto this journey, you need to make sure that you're giving the right messages from the word go. So it's looking at those myths and misconceptions, making sure that you fully understand what it actually means and what it looks, sounds, feels like in the classroom, and then spending the time working on a whole school plan, a whole school approach as to what you need to do, because every school is different in terms of where you're going with this journey, and to allow it to be sustainable and to have the biggest impact as it possibly can.
Okay, so once staff have been involved and started to develop their own journey, we offer various programs for children. So the first thing, this is a really popular program that we've launched, and it's called Mindset Motivation. It's a minimum of 6 weeks where we work with whole classes or even smaller intervention focus groups, and we build the knowledge of mindset and encourage, like with adults, reflection time, and we create a journey for the children, but also for the class-based teacher and TA within that journey that is really important. The sessions are active and hands-on, and we provide the children with clear understanding of their choices that they have and what the actual science behind learning means as well. Okay, so we touch on lots of elements over that journey of a minimum of 6 weeks, doing an hour a week with the children. The next programme that we offer schools is what we call Gym Teach, and this comes in 2 parts. We have Gym Teach A and B. Part A is when you're in a position to launch it with the children, and that is where we would come in with our 10-foot inflatable brain space to introduce the concept, work in each class, so in primary from reception all the way up to year 6, and do a growth mindset focused session. But we bespoke for each class. We don't deliver the same session to every year group throughout the school. Each session is unique to each year group. Okay, the next part to Gym Teach is Gym Teach B. And this is where we actually start to work with the class teacher to understand that growth mindset isn't a one-off PSHE lesson or Mindset Monday. It's something that we weave across the curriculum, across all subjects. So the teacher will choose a subject of their choice, and we will work with them to plan a lesson, understanding the principles of mindset within that lesson, and then we will come and teach the lesson, not in an observational role, but as a collaborative. Okay, so we come together and work together to deliver a lesson to show how that would work and what it looks like. Okay, the other session that we offer is what we call Brain Gym, and this is where you're quite established in your school and the principles of mindset are quite embedded, and it's reconnecting and revisiting those principles. So again, it's bringing in our 10-foot brain, and we split the classes into 2 halves. Half come into the brain and do well-being and mindfulness. The other half of the class will get hands-on, very active with our mind craft treasure hunt and activity. So it's a really hands-on, fun activity day. So they're the three programs that we offer the children at this point, but we bespoke whatever we do to meet the needs of the schools we work in. Okay. So here are all our information details. You've got here our website, which has a wealth of information on there. We've got blogs, we've got all about growth mindset, all about our programs and price. We've got our email address, info@growyourmindset.co.uk, our phone number, and we're all on all social media platforms. So please keep in touch. And obviously now, if you've got any questions that you want to ask us specifically, we're here to answer those for you, whether you're on a journey or not. We welcome your questions.
Okay, thanks, Liz and Gemma. And don't worry about the backdrop, Gemma. I am fed up to the back teeth with my wallpaper behind me. That's why I've ended up with this this screen behind me, this virtual screen, because I've been doing this for 7 months, and that wallpaper is driving me crazy.
I've literally just had my husband creeping round me, so not to disturb, because I'm literally just stood in my hallway. But anyway.
I know, it's funny, isn't it? My daughter's doing the same. She's just about to go to college, and she's back and forwards, treading on eggshells. I said, don't worry, camera's off, I'm on mute. Okay, is there, are there any, there was a question about your email address, which I've answered, and you've answered with it being on that slide. What I would say, though, for all of these presentations, is that if you bookmark the National Wellbeing Partnership, you'll be able to get all of those details for every partner. So if you go on and onto the SAS website and you look for the National Wellbeing Partnership, essentially just bookmark National Wellbeing Partnership, and you can look in there and you can actually pull up the details of every partnership that we have, every partner we have. So if you think you might have missed it, don't worry. The other thing is as well, we are going to be recording this and putting it on the SAS website, the Wellbeing Partnership website, and then you can always come back and have a look if you can't find it. But as I say, probably the best way is using the National Wellbeing Partnership. What I would say is that thank you for that, ladies. That was a really good appraisal of mindset, and you know, I can't speak highly enough about the whole concept of mindset. It had a significant impact for my school. If you're a school that's ever been in special measures or requires improvement, you'll know the pressure you're under. and it does take a bit of a leap of faith. But at the end of the day, this is about doing what's right for the kids. It's about doing what's right for the staff. You know, one of the presentations that we've got in future weeks is about giving teachers their sense of purpose back. And for me, the whole notion of growth mindset is about giving the teachers their purpose back as well. I mean, came into the profession to make a difference to young people's lives and to grow them as young adults and prepare them for the world ahead of them. And you know, maybe the world we live in terms of the jumping through attainment shaped hoops all the time and that focus, maybe we've just got a little bit of the focus wrong and we need to rebalance that. So as I say, growth mindset is absolutely huge. The ladies are right. There are some charlatans out there who don't do it properly, and it is part of positive psychology. And we do have Julie Hurst coming to talk to us a little bit later about positive education. And next week we also have Frederica Roberts coming, who has also written a book about positive education, and growth mindset is part of that. I'm just going to grab the book. I'm not sure if you can see that. It's called.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. It's called For Flourishing's Sake. And if you want to buy a book and read a book that's really good about the positive impact of mindset and positive education more generally, then this is a great book to do it. There's some really key takeaways at the end of each chapter as well, and it's a whole school book. It's a book that you can actually share across the school and help you to build a whole school approach from reception all the way through. I would argue, I have a daughter that's at university. I think all of this is pertinent all the way through to university and beyond. Yeah. So you can make a really positive impact in your school. We did this, as I say, we made a conscious effort for the staff to ignore the data. I kept an eye on the data as head, but I asked the staff to focus on mindset, things like encouraging children to understand that it's fine to make mistakes, you know, because at the end of the day, we all make mistakes. It's a critical part of learning. And we even had displays up around the school. Beautiful display and reception of a tree with lots of leaves, where the children said, "These are my best mistakes because I learned this." Yeah. And I think children are quite often under so much pressure from parents in terms of parents wanting them to get it right first time. Yeah. That, you know, I think there's some work to do with parents here as well. So it is a huge piece of work, but you know, if you are interested in mindset, please contact the ladies, and there are other providers on the site as well. And good luck with it. But you won't make it's not a poor decision. You know, you'll only move forward. So thank you, ladies, for your input this morning.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much for having us.
Bang on time.
That was good. Take care, everyone. See you later.
So much. Bye. Okay, our third presentation is Sue Evans. Are you here, Sue?
I certainly am.
Fantastic. Now, Sue, I've asked all the presenters to give me just a line just to explain what the session's about. And Sue's session is skills to keep stress useful. And stress is useful. If you're faced by a lion and you need to get away, and stress is the thing that makes you want to get away and get away quickly. And so stress is useful, but obviously in limited amounts. We can't be drawing on stress, and this is why people get ill in school, because they're constantly drawing on the cortisol in the bodies. I'm not going to take any more of your thunder, Sue. But Sue's session is skills to keep stress useful, improving well-being by bypassing the biggest drawback of trying to manage stress. So this is about staff mental well-being. So thanks for joining us, Sue, and you've got 15 minutes.
Wonderful. Well, first challenge is I have to work out how to share my screen, so bear with me a sec. Is it letting me? No, it doesn't appear to be letting me. Can you see slides?
Yes. We've got
Brilliant. Okay, so we're going to have a little bit of a taste here of what the Fast Pathways Academy is all about. Skills to keep stress useful over the last few years has been one of my most popular masterclasses. And what it's all about, and the whole session and everything that you're doing with the Schools Advisory Service, is about well-being. Now, my take on well-being is that it's partly to do with the load that we're experiencing. That's made up of our worries, anxieties, upsets, things that are bothering us, things that are getting under our skin, compared to the resources that you have for dealing with it. Now, of course, a lot of the loads will be ones that we won't have chosen to experience, but even so, as long as we've got those resources either within ourselves or within our support network, we can maintain that state of well-being. And of course, recent months have seen those loads ramp up massively. In the teaching profession, as well as dealing with the same uncertainties and stresses that everyone else is having to deal with around the pandemic, it's ramped up your already quite big workload even further, with the pressures of perhaps trying to catch students up who haven't been able to keep up through virtual learning. You've got students adjusting to bubbles and loads of extra restrictions and perhaps not sticking to them and behaving quite as well as you'd like in class. You've got the pressures of having to, as well as delivering live in class, how do you deliver those who are isolating? And somehow, in the middle of it all, trying to look after yourself as well. Now, teaching's always been a stressful profession. There was a research produced a few months ago that said that 1 in 5 teachers anticipate leaving the classroom for good within the next 2 years because of the stress that it involves. So if ever you were going to put a wellbeing initiative in place, now's the time. But if you're relying on changing what's causing that stress, particularly at the moment with so much of it coming from outside the profession itself, you're probably going to end up stuck. I've supported a lot of people over the years who'd got stuck and got them past it with some straightforward but surprisingly powerful skills for stopping that uncomfortable high alert that you described. I mean, thankfully, most of us don't get chased by a lion on a daily basis. Now, skills is rarely a word that people link with well-being. But imagine you've got someone within your team who is particularly good at something that everyone else has to do. Maybe they're amazingly good at persuading the less engaged students to still do their homework, of instilling in them the absolute passion for their subject. It'd be quite handy if everyone could do that. So if that was the case, you might want to find out how that particular member of staff is getting those great results and outcomes so that you could teach it to everyone else and they get good at it too. And that's how the skills that I work with originated. Some very curious pioneers way back in the 1970s interviewed hundreds and hundreds of people who'd overcome trauma, who'd got over phobias, who were exceptionally good at dealing with very highly stressed situations without it stressing them out. And over the course of those interviews, they managed to tease out some of people. And these are skills that you all have already. There will be certain challenges that you just rise to without it being a big deal. There will be certain individuals who, no matter how difficult they get, you can still deal with them calmly and resourcefully. And yet there may be other individuals who just kind of get under your skin, who can mood hoover you or upset you in a way that it nags on for hours after you've talked with them. So what these skills are all about are about getting more of those fantastic outcomes on purpose rather than by accident. Now, unfortunately, because of time today, I haven't got time to share the actual skills with you in this session, but I would love you to be able to experience some. So there's a URL and a QR code on the slide here This will give you access to 3 of the most powerful skills. One is designed to get your system off high alert and keep you comfortable and resourceful. One is designed to help resolve nagging worry by changing the way that you're talking to yourself in your mind. And the other one is around being able to deal more confidently and comfortably with difficult people. That one in particular, I've actually stopped about 5 or 6 people resigning a role that they loved to avoid a particularly difficult working relationship. It doesn't have to be long or time consuming to get those kind of breakthroughs. Now, stress actually is not a single experience. It's one little word that we would use to describe a whole array of different things. It might be feeling upset about something. It might be worrying about something. It might be frustrated. I'm an engineer. Engineers like to simplify things. And I went on a mission to try and simplify stress, which was actually quite challenging. But the more I thought about it, the more this kind of clarity gradually emerged that there is something that every single stress has in common. Every stress is some kind of gap between how you'd like it to be and how it actually is. The more gaps you're experiencing, or the bigger any individual gap is, the more that stress is likely to become uncomfortable. And those are the stresses that we tend to notice the most, the problem stresses, the ones that frustrate or upset or drain us. But if you think about that definition, every stress being some kind of gap, there will be absolutely millions of things in the world that are not as you would have them be. Most of them don't really bother you and certainly don't keep you awake at night, because most of them are this second type of stress, the neutral stresses, where something isn't as you'd like it, but it doesn't kind of get that emotional hook that drags you along in its wake. There is a third type of stress where the real magic lies, the useful stresses. Now, these may still be ones that you hadn't chosen to experience, but they're the stresses that you embrace, that you grow from, that you learn from. So it might be a particular skill that you are determined to master, no matter how many setbacks along the way. It might be a particular student who you are absolutely committing to get engaged with your subject, no matter how much they resist. These are the stresses that give life meaning. And the beautiful thing is that the more you start to notice of them, the more you start to experience of them, even without anything materially changing. So being a process engineer, I thought, well, brilliant. What's the process to get from a problem stress to a useful stress? And it's really straightforward. The basic difference between a problem and a useful stress is that you're able to take action on that gap. Now, you might not be able to make that gap go away completely, but even action to reduce it a little bit changes how you experience that gap. So it might be the steps along the way to getting that student to engage and love your subject. It might be, if you're studying for a qualification, each assignment as you've done it is another piece of that gap gone. And that's brilliant if it is a gap that you can take action on. But not all of them are. There will be some gaps that you experience that there's absolutely no action you can take on whatsoever. And that's where the power of the skills come in. The skills are designed to change how your mind processes a gap, to change how it feels, to resolve that discomfort so that even if you can't get rid of the situation, you can respond to it differently. It's basically ways to retrain your brain's autopilot. And the beauty of that is, very often, when you bring your system off that uncomfortable fight-flight response of problem stress, it brings you out of that kind of blinkered survival mode and reconnects your more creative thinking. So there are so many times over the years that I've worked with people who are absolutely stuck, convinced that there was nothing at all they could do about the particular gap they were experiencing, until with those skills they neutralized the stress, reconnected their creative thinking, and all of a sudden solutions start to present themselves, which is incredibly powerful. And even if you don't tackle the biggest, messiest, most uncomfortable gaps, having those skills and having that process running to address any of the gaps frees up some of those resources to allow you to deal more effectively with the gaps that still remain. It is a hugely powerful transition. Now, I promised you I'd tell you one of the biggest drawbacks to managing, and it's this. If you think about how many people you know, how many of them eat their 5 fresh fruit and veg every single day without fail? And it's probably not very many. We all know we should, and we all understand why it's good for us, but we still don't do it, or at least not enough to maintain the results. And that's managing's biggest drawback, because it is definitely better than not managing, but no matter what approach you take, whether that's journaling and gratitudes, or practicing mindfulness, or exercising more regularly, every single approach requires doing something differently and doing it consistently enough to maintain those results. Unfortunately, when we are least likely to have the time and the energy and the emotion to do something differently is when we're stressed out and we need it most. So you tend to find that it yo-yos. We get into these really uncomfortable cycles. We'll do it for a while, it might get better, and then it tails off again. The difference in the ways that the skills work is they retrain the brain's autopilot to do it differently all by itself. So you don't have to keep on practicing the skills to keep on getting those fantastic outcomes. I know a big concern for a lot of people is, well, great, how do you find the time to learn to do it differently in the first place? Most of the skills that I work with take around 10 minutes. With 2 or 3 skills, sometimes I've been able to get people back to work after repeated absences. I mentioned preventing people handing in their notice because of difficult working relationships or challenges that they didn't feel able to embrace. It doesn't need to take long to get those kind of breakthrough results. And of course, the skills work as much for preventing issues escalating to that level in the first place as they do for resolving them when they have. It's a really positive loop. If we go back to that definition of well-being being that balance between the resources that we have and the load that we're experiencing, what the skills do is add to those resources. It creates the creative thinking so that you act on some of the load, which frees up the resources, and you end up in this really positive kind of self-sustaining cycle for that small investment of 10 minutes here and there. The kind of outcomes that the skills get are very commonly, people find that they're able to sleep better, they worry less, confidence improves, difficult working relationships or even personal relationships are more smoothly resolved. And people just generally get better able to stay on top of the challenges that life's throwing at them, and they're happier, which is a nice thing to be able to support. So if you would like to explore those skills, do dip into the resources. As an engineer, another thing I like is data. I tend to, when I'm doing masterclasses, ask people to choose something specific that they want to feel better about. No one has to share what that is, but something that bothers, frustrates, upsets, or worries them. Ask them to score how that makes them feel. From 1 being absolutely fine to 10 as bad as it could possibly get. At the start of the training, we're usually averaging between a 7 and an 8 of what people have chosen. In as little as 45 minutes, that discomfort comes down generally to about a 3, and those results last. So to have an explore, do get yourself along to that landing page, bob in your details, and you'll get access to a dashboard that has a couple of really short introductory videos to how the skills work, and then step-by-step guidance, so you can pop on your headphones when you can take 10 minutes quiet somewhere, do it somewhere safe that you can let your mind wander, and just start giving your autopilot a little bit of training to do things more helpfully. So Andy, have we any questions?
We do. We have a question about whether you'd be happy to share the PowerPoint.
I would. I'm not sure it'd be any use to anyone, but yes, I'd be happy to.
Because obviously it'll appear in the recording of this webinar, so you'll be able to come in and have a look at it on the webinar. But maybe we could share it maybe on the National Wellbeing Partnership page, so that people could have a look at it and download it, particularly with the QR code that you've got there at the end. A question from me would be, if you're working in a school and you want to sort of read around this particular subject area, what reading would you suggest that people do? Where should they go?
To be honest, what I've created with the Fast Pathways Academy has been drawn from probably 10 years of quite extensive research. So I'd love to give you, right, your go-to book is this. There'd probably be about 15. I think one which was a real game changer for me in the way that I work is Kelly McGonigal. And I'm just trying to look at my bookcase over there, what it's actually called. She's got 2 books around willpower. Sorry, I've just spotted it. The Upside of Stress. She's also got a fantastic TED Talk. So I think Kelly's one of the world famous psychology team. I think it's from Stanford Uni in the States. Absolutely love her work. So if useful stress is something that you want to explore further, I can definitely recommend her TED Talk and the Upside of Stress book.
Brilliant. Well, could you just bob that in the chat so that when people come to view this again, they can see it in the chat as well?
I certainly will.
Lovely, thank you. I mean, one of the for me, when I was researching the impact of stress, for me, I swear by this book, and this person. You may well have come across Dr. Rangan Chatterjee, if I can hold it up.
It's doing a brilliant job of blending you into your background again. Yeah.
It's called the 4-Pillar Plan. And basically, he goes into talking about, he's got a fairly novel approach in that he doesn't feel, he feels we overprescribe. He doesn't feel we should be prescribing as many medicines, but actually, if we eat properly, we take time to relax, we take time for exercise, and we make sure we get enough sleep, all of those things actually lead to a longer, healthier life, which is more stress-free. So, you know, just to back up the point that Sue made really about nutrition, it is really, really important. Sleep's really important. And, you know, this is where I put my hand up and say, you know, up until Christmas as a head, I didn't do enough of any of those things, to be honest with you. But it is about being the best version of ourselves that we can be. And particularly at the moment, you know, if we're constantly stressed and we're constantly dipping into cortisol, cortisol is great for responding to immediate stress, but long-term stress produces cortisol on a long-term basis, and actually takes that hormone actually takes building blocks away from other parts of the way our body functions. So we see, you know, ourselves getting to a half term and all of a sudden crashing and becoming ill, because actually we've got overuse of cortisol. So that book's really good, and hopefully if Sue can pop those things in the those books and that TED Talk in the chat, then we should have a record of that going forward as well.
And I'm absolutely with that guy on the prescriptions front. I've made it my mission to save the NHS £1 million in avoidable prescriptions. Yeah,
absolutely. And it is about taking care of ourselves. You know, the pandemic has sort of illustrated to us that maybe we've not been taking enough care of ourselves. And, you know, there seem to be an awful lot more people out on their bikes and running nowadays because we realised that actually staying healthy and looking after ourselves rather than waiting for the NHS to pick us up, is probably the way to go. And you know, essentially what we've done this morning is some of the people who've talked this morning have also talked about the children being able to manage their own learning as well. You know, developing a growth mindset. That's about them giving themselves the skills to be able to cope, rather than expecting it, you know, a teacher just maybe to stand at the front and fill them with facts. So, you know, there's a common theme through all of this as well. Okay, we are just about to move on to the next one. Can I thank you, Sue, for your input this morning? And before we move on, can I ask Massimo, who is there, to turn his camera off, please? Just had a request from one of the speakers if Massimo could turn his camera off, because we're busy watching the TV behind you, Massimo. Thank you. That would be really useful if you could turn that camera off. Okay, I'm going to move on now to our next speaker, who is Julie Hurst. Julie is a provider who has vast experience of working with schools up and down the country, and is going to give us a 15-minute presentation all about positive education and training, 3 ways you can make a difference to well-being right now. So, Julie, are you there?
I am here, as long as we can do the normal thing of can everyone hear me okay, Andy? Is that okay with you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant. I'm going to endeavour to share my screen with you all. Hopefully that's working. And
that's good.
There we go. So I just want to go quite quickly through positive education. Some of you may have heard of positive education, some of you not. But I'm hoping by the end of these few minutes, not only will you have heard of it, I'm actually going to set you a positive education challenge to take in as well. So even though we're via Teams, this is still an interactive session. To give this a little bit of context, I'm a positive psychologist, which means that I have spent several decades working in major organisations throughout the UK, dealing with things like resilience, performance, and well-being. For the last 4 or 5 years, I've been working with schools up and down the country, bringing those same skills into the classroom and working with teachers on how they can put positive education into their teaching. So not as an additional job, but actually as the way they teach. And I've been working directly with some of the children as well. So let's take you at a fairly brisk trot through some of this. And if you've got any questions, I'm sure Andy can relay it to me. So first of all, sit back, relax, and just watch this video. Hello, today I'm going to answer the question, what is positive education? Positive education is a growing movement in schools throughout the world. It is rooted in the science of positive psychology. Positive psychology itself is the study of human flourishing. It's about living the best lives we can, whatever our circumstances, and allows us to become emotionally strong and resilient. If we look at mental health, we can divide it into 2 elements, mental illness and mental wellness. For a long time, psychology studied mental illness, looking at what went wrong and trying to find out why. In fact, psychology was referred to as the study of the broken machine. The goal of psychology was to help people find a way to move from the negative side of the mental health scale back to the middle, where they no longer felt so ill. But in the 1990s, Professor Martin Seligman changed all of that when he began to study what was going right with people and how to move further into the plus side of the scale and experience mental wellness. He realised that by doing more of what enables us to flourish, we can live lives of greater meaning and happiness. We can also deal better with adversity. Positive education is the application of this knowledge in the classroom. And more schools are realising the amazing benefits for the whole school community. It is not something just for children, but something that benefits everyone. The main model of positive education is called PERMA. This stands for experiencing positive emotions by making the most of our opportunities for joy and happiness. Engagement through doing things that are absorbing and challenging. Relationships means forming strong, healthy friendships and bonds in the community. Meaning is generated when we do things that matter or act with kindness. And accomplishment goes far beyond academic success and recognises qualities such as gratitude, friendship, a love of learning, and generosity. The elements of PERMA are based on thousands of studies and decades of research. It is an evidence-based approach. Positive education means using each of these elements in the way the curriculum is taught every day, as well as holding bespoke sessions specifically based on PERMA skills. While some of the skills focus more on one PERMA element than the others, most incorporate several aspects of the model. Positive education is not just positive thinking. One of its great strengths is that it helps children recognise and cope with difficult emotions too. It is about providing skills for life and equipping children with the resilience they need to cope with tough times, as well as cherishing the good ones. Here's just a taste of what it can do. The next time your children need a confidence boost, try these power poses from Harvard professor Amy Cuddy. All they have to do is hold a powerful pose, whether it's the strength of Wonder Woman, Superman taking flight, or raising their arms aloft in celebration like a race winner. Then they can allow themselves to enjoy the feelings these poses bring. They only need to hold their pose for a few moments to get that important confidence rush. It's a great activity to do before tackling a tricky subject or taking a test. And it works for grown-ups too. The great news is that the benefits of positive education are well documented, and they don't come at the cost of academic performance. In fact, the evidence shows that they improve it. Positive education doesn't require expensive equipment. It does take a commitment to its principles and the time and training on how to apply them. If we want children to perform at their best, they need to feel at their best. When this happens, positive education works like magic, everyday magic. And we support schools throughout the UK to make some everyday magic of their own through our training and seminars, as well as videos like this one. You can find out more about us here. Okay, so I'll be giving out that detail again later, but for now I just want to go on with the difference that positive education makes in the classroom. Oh, let's get past that. The first thing is, as I've said, that it's really easy to learn, both for staff and for the children. And what's more, the children really enjoy learning the things that make up positive education. You saw there a glimpse of Amy Cuddy's power poses work. Quite recently, I had a whole room full of teachers doing their power poses, which was a sight to behold, and I've got the photographic evidence to prove it. But children enjoy learning things that actually make them feel better. So that it isn't a difficult sell for a teacher. You don't need any special equipment, really. Bits of card, some empty jam jars, all the activities can be done quite easily, and most of them are simply about doing things a little differently, but according to the science, and that's quite important. There is well over 30 research now into POS-Ed, and that makes a huge difference to the meaning behind which we can say this works. It makes teaching easier, not harder. It's really important to me that teachers are able to get up and do this stuff without it making their job more difficult. Once you understand the principles of POS-Ed, it's really simple to weave them through what you're doing already. It doesn't have to be an extra task. Otherwise, it just becomes more work, and that's not what we're about at all. and both children and staff flourish. When staff learn these things, they too can join in, and it makes a difference in their lives. One of the great things that I love about POSED is that it helps teachers who might otherwise be buckling a bit under the burdens to rediscover the joy of teaching, because there is a huge amount of joy in teaching. So my second point to you is my challenge, and it's to try this. One of the main theories of positive education is broaden and build. It's the work of a psychologist and researcher called Barbara Fredrickson. And what she has said is the more frequently we experience positive emotions, the more resilient we become. So if you imagine your resilience being like a vase inside you, then the more frequently you come into contact with positive emotions, the more you fill that vase, which means that when you need it, you can draw on it. It's not which kind of positive emotions, it's not the depth to which you experience them, it's the frequency. We also know from people like Lord Richard Layard that emotional self-efficacy in childhood has a huge link to mental wellness in adulthood. So this P for PERMA, the positive emotions element, is one of the most critical that we can begin to put in the classroom. And my challenge to you is about setting an emotional goal. Here are just a few of the positive emotions that you might want to try this out with. What I'm asking you to do is to pick a positive emotion as a goal. So whichever one you choose, whether it's amusement or happiness, inspiration, whichever one you pick, work out how you're going to feel that goal in the next 24 hours. So it's not just wait for it to turn up. This is about being active in your own mental wellness. Pick a goal, work out a way you can experience it, and then work that plan and notice what happens. Andy mentioned cortisol a little earlier, and in terms of the chemical constituents of your brain, doing this sort of thing has a massive impact. Serotonin goes up, oxytocin goes up, cortisol goes down, and so we can make a huge difference to our own mental wellness just by doing something this simple. Pick an emotion, work out how you're going to feel it, work that plan, and notice how it feels. Then for more information, it's quite simple. I'd like you to visit these places. So via the National Wellbeing Partnership, of course, Andy's a big proponent of that, you'll find our programme, Pebble Positive Education Everyday Magic. That's our flagship programme. It's a 3-day intensive programme which will train the whole staff, the whole school body, in terms of positive education. And as you can see there, it's approved by the British Psychological Society. It is one of the very few programmes in this arena that they have approved. And it means we've met their standards on psychological theory, on the way it's taught, and on its content. So it's approved by the BPS, and you can find it on the National Wellbeing Partnership website. Finally, there's our website, the WLBC.com. Just visit there, you'll find the little tab to take you through to all the Pebble programmes, information and more resources. There are the video I just showed you is one of a suite of videos. They're there freely available. Search on my name, Julie Hurst, Positive Education. You'll find them all, and you can watch them over and over and share them with your staff. Please do share them with parents. They all teach you a different aspect of positive education, and all with something you can put into practice straight away. And then on Facebook, we've got the group Education in Mind. Free to join. It's a closed group, but please apply to join and we'll let you in, and you can take part in the discussions or just see about new resources as soon as we release them. Everyone's welcome to come along. And I thought I would just leave you with a few comments that have come from children, parents and staff that we've worked with. So this one's from a child, which is lovely to hear, that gives them happy memories. A teacher who noticed the difference it made to her class in just a few minutes. And another teacher who took their class on a kindness walk and has decided to do it with every year group from now on. And this is one of my favourites. It's the best inset I've been on in 20 years. After 20 years, I think sometimes teachers can get a little bit inset day weary, and to hear that was an absolute joy. So let's take you back to this, which is just the any questions part. And then with a bit of luck, I'll be able to bring you back over and stop sharing, and hopefully we're all together.
Hi, Julie. Thank you for that.
That's not a problem.
That was really good. You've only got 15 minutes, and it's a bit of a whistle stop.
Yes, well, I was determined to come in on time because I know people will be getting a little weary. So
yeah,
so that'll do it.
That's much appreciated. I've actually put your Wellbeing Partnership page in the chat so that people can have a look at that page, and I'll be doing that with each of the providers. One of the things I would say is that this is a piece of work that Julie's working on, and there are a number of positive educators around the world working on. If you're interested in having a look at some schools that are doing this, probably the most noticeable is Geelong Grammar School in Melbourne. And if you just Google Geelong Grammar School, you'll probably see an awful lot of what they do. They've taken it in a slightly different direction. They've added health onto the end of PERMA. So it's worth having a look at that and doing a little bit of research. The other thing to tell you as well is that I am also working with all the major membership organisations, so NEHT, ASCL, Chartered College, SSAT, to try and create a groundswell of opinion that says it's time we put well-being and positive education at the heart of the way we educate children. For too long, we've been driving kids through these attainment-shaped hoops. And what we're seeing is more and more teachers and school leaders leaving the profession, more and more children needing CAMS interventions. And actually what we need to do is go back and actually start what we do with children at the very youngest of ages differently. And positive education for me is the answer to all of that. It's about going back and actually giving teachers their sense of purpose back in developing all those things that Julie's been talking about, which then gives teachers fulfillment in terms of doing the job that they came into the profession to do. So, you know, there's a huge amount in this, and it benefits not only the children in our schools, but also the staff, and gives them a sense of real purpose back. Is there anything you'd like to add to that, Julie?
Yeah, just one thing really, Andy. There's been some work done at the moment that shows where positive education is brought into schools, there is a dramatic decrease in the call on camps, huge decrease, which can only be to the good. But can I just stress that while I'm sure we all accept doing it for the well-being is enough, it does actually support and improve academics as well. So it's not an either or. Yeah,
absolutely. Is there any chance you could put a link to that piece of research that you just mentioned in the chat?
I will dig it out, and I will do that. If not, Andy, I'll send it to you, and
we can circulate it.
Yeah,
that'd be great, because it's that sort of information. You know, if you've not seen Adrian Bethune's video on Twitter, Adrian has a very short video. The best I can describe it is it's got an orange background, and it's about, can schools help children to be happier? And actually what he says is just what Julie said. This isn't an either or. If we actually get the emotional health and well-being of our children right, then standards will follow. And that's what I found as a school leader as well. So absolutely the case. We could actually do probably a whole day's training on this and talk about it all day. But can I just thank on your behalf, Julie, for your input as well. I think this could well just be the start of a journey for an awful lot of schools. And certainly, you know, that's the way we'd like it to be. I'm not sure this is going to come from the DFE. I think we have to grow this grassroots up. But what we are looking to do is to grow a national network of wellbeing friendly schools. So if that's something that interests you as well, then we'd love to work with you and keep you as part of that network. Julie, thank you ever so much for your time this morning.
You're welcome.
I'm going to have to whiz on.
Yes, of course.
And if you can put that link in, that'll be great. Otherwise, I'll circulate it to everybody on the call. Right, moving on to our next presenter. Mike Heverin is the CEO of SupplyWell. I'm kind of hoping he's heard me talking and mention his name, and he's just about to come on the call. Mike's doing a presentation that is about staff wellbeing. It's called Teach Healthy, Digital Online Health Assessments to Help Schools Create a Proactive and Preventative Health Culture. Mike, are you with us?
I hope so, yeah. Can you hear me, Andy?
Fantastic, wonderful. Over to you. You got 15 minutes.
Thanks. I'd like to say, can you see me, by the way, Andy? Give me an indication.
Can.
You can,
Yeah.
Wonderful. A little bit later on, I'm going to try and share my screen. So, Andy, I might have to call on you at that point for some assistance if it all goes a little bit wrong.
Mike, don't worry about it. Just go to the top right-hand corner.
Yeah.
And it says share content. There's a little rectangular box with an arrow in it. Go into there. Everybody else has done that. Seems to have worked well this morning.
Lovely.
So go for it.
That's the best CPD I've ever had. Thanks. Now, good morning, everybody. My name is Michael Heverin, and 18 months ago, I was a secondary teacher, geography teacher for my sins, and I was also a senior leader. And I left teaching, as Andy mentioned there, to co-found SupplyWell, creating a technology-led solution to help keep teachers and money in education. Fundamentally, that's the goal, and we do that quite simply. Just by connecting supply teachers and schools directly, but critically, we work with schools to really help them to help them enable their teachers to teach healthy and improve their well-being. I'm here today to tell you a quick story. I really don't want to take too much of your time, and I appreciate some of you may have been on this for a while, and tell you about Teach Healthy, which is a solution. Now, as a member of the leadership team at school, and obviously as a classroom teacher as well, I found myself juggling 3 whole school responsibilities. I was teaching 17 hours a week. I was a new father. My own father was seriously ill at the time, and I was in the process of moving house as well. I began to struggle fundamentally, and the route that I was on, the road I was on, clearly wasn't sustainable. I began to struggle, and my rain barrel overflowed. You know, it's a familiar story. My school life was too much for me to cope with, and there was a lot of flux and change and transition in my personal life as well. And before I knew it, I was a statistic, and I fell out of teaching. And I was one of 44,000 teachers that left the profession that I loved that year. Now, my absence from school cost in supply costs in the region of £25,000. And I was off for 2 periods over the course of 1 academic year. I have no doubt that my absence also negatively impacted on student outcomes, and it absolutely contributed to further inconsistencies within the teaching staff within the classroom. Now, the kicker for me is all of that was preventable, in my opinion, and my experience, which was not a pleasant one at all, is not uncommon, albeit on differing scales across the teaching profession. As I'm sure you all know, teaching is one of the most stressful professions that there is, and I saw that through my own experience there was an opportunity to influence positive change, and that's really what I wanted to do. I wanted to be able to help teachers and schools to occupy a proactive and a preventable space where well-being was not an afterthought. It's not a tick box exercise because Ofsted now say that we have to. I wanted it to be something meaningful, and I didn't want it to be a reaction to an absence or to an illness, whether that be mental or physical or otherwise. So we created Teach Healthy, which is an online digital health assessment, scientifically researched and medically led. That it creates individual health reports for teachers and intuitive anonymized data for leadership teams with actionable strategies critically. I wanted to create something that helps schools, teachers and students something meaningful and actionable to help drive a culture shift for teaching. And I think Andy's spoken about that in terms of how can we get a groundswell of you know, like-minded people to really make a difference and influence things. And the benefits of Teach Healthy for me are quite simple. At whole school level, you know, you can see there will be a retention, the staff retention will increase along with productivity, as well as enhancing the school environment. For teachers, they receive a personalised health report with detailed action plans, and they can track their progress. A better work-life balance is achieved, which is absolutely critical. Enhanced resilience, improved energy levels. These are just some of the many, many benefits that we can see. But critically, absenteeism is reduced, as is presenteeism. And finally, for students, they receive a better deal. You know, fundamentally, consistency in the classroom is key to securing better outcomes. So how do we do it? If this goes according to plan, Andy, this should be, hopefully we will see.
Yeah, we can see your screen.
You can see my screen. So it's quite simple and straightforward. This is how we do it. Teach Healthy. It's a clean, simple and easy to use platform. It takes no longer than 30 minutes to complete. And as you look at it, it's just simple, easy questions that you can answer. As I say, it takes no longer than half an hour. And it's something that really will benefit individual teachers and whole school and children. So that's what the assessment looks like. If we were to look at a report of what a teacher would then receive instantly, it gives them every facet of their well-being that they've looked at. It offers a GP summary depending on what the engagement survey kicks out for them. It gives them information around all aspects of their wellness and their well-being. From a school perspective, from a leadership perspective, this is really kind of critical for me. It offers up all aspects of a staff help. Everything is anonymized, absolutely fundamentally so. But it gives data-driven information, actionable, intuitive information and analysis that you as a leadership team can then use either internally, things that you can do to improve outcomes and the health of your teaching staff. So I'm hoping that I will now be back in the room. Am I back in, Andy? Can you see me, or are you still?
Yeah, we can see you. You're back in the room.
See me? Fantastic. So that, in a nutshell, everybody, really is kind of it. It's both teachers and leaders receiving intuitive, actionable, data-driven information that you didn't have before, to help school leaders keep their teachers, like me, in the classroom teaching healthy and delivering better outcomes for children. So that in a nutshell is it really. Hopefully we're well within the time, Andy, because I know that we're on a little bit of a hard stop, and if there's any questions or anyone would like any further information, I'll pass that to Andy, and we can go from there. Thank you.
Great, thanks for that, Mike. It's we've no questions coming through, which has been the trend really this morning in terms of there's the odd question that's come through, but what I'm doing is I'm actually putting your National Wellbeing Partnership page up in the chat bar so that people can see your website, they can see your information, a bit more information about what it is that you do, but also your contact details as well. There's a question come through about what's the cost.
Great, good question. That's one that everybody needs to know. It's very affordable. The cost per teacher, depending, obviously, it's cost per teacher and depends on the size of the school. You know, the bigger the school, the less the cost. So it really depends fundamentally on how many teachers that you have. But it will never ever cost more than £30 per teacher ever, regardless of how big the school is, and that's a yearly subscription, and you can access the platform as many times as you want as a teacher.
Another question's come through. Can I trial it as a leader to make a decision?
Absolutely, yeah, 100%. We could take that offline and we can get some details and get that for you, of course.
So the best thing to do, really, if people want to follow this up or any of the talks up this morning, is to make contact through the Wellbeing Partnership page, and your contact details are on there, so they can make contact with you, and you can have an offline conversation with them about you know, what it might look like in terms of cost for the school, the size of the school.
Yeah.
And it has had quite an impact in terms of the information that's being fed back to senior leadership teams. It gives you I guess a bit of a temperature check on where mental health and well-being is in your school. But I know when you showed it to me, we went through that process that you've just whizzed through, and it brought up a warning, a GP warning, which basically said, we urge you to go and see a GP straight away. You know, and I think that's a really useful thing to have, because essentially, who knows, if you think your mental health is the way that everybody else's mental health is, actually this gives you a sense of benchmarking it against potentially what this software is suggesting that we do. So so that I found that really useful. I think, you know, that information, that advice that's given through the questionnaire is really useful to individual members of staff, but it also has the benefit of a temperature check as well for the leadership team in the school. How many schools are you working with across the country?
We're actually in discussions with a number of trusts at the moment, and a large local authority as well. We're pioneering this. This has had absolutely incredible success in the corporate environment, trusted by the NHS, Twinkle, Grant Thornton, and we're pioneering a partnership now to bring this into education, and it's really exciting for us to be able to kind of do that.
Brill. Any other questions to Mike before he dashes off? No? Well, if you want to follow any of this up, or any of these talks up this morning, please do use the National Wellbeing Partnership website. All the contact details for all the speakers are on there, and I know them all, and they'll get back to you straight away, because they want to make a difference. And as you could tell, you know, a lot of this is personal to Mike. It comes from his experience, and you know, there are teachers across the country who feel the same way, who've either left the profession or are thinking of leaving the profession, and this is an opportunity for us to be able to look after them and to be able to see where we're up to in terms of proactively supporting them. So thank you for your time this morning, Mike, or Mr. Heverin, as your camera tells me.
I know old habits die hard, I guess. That's great. Thanks for your time, Andy.
Fantastic. Have a good day, Mike.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Okay, we've saved a bit of time as we've gone through the morning, which is great, because bonus time at the end of this is always welcome. And our final speaker this morning is Ed Gladstone from Schools Advisory Service. Ed is put together a presentation which is about physical and mental well-being, and it's about combating stress by staying active, supporting your physical and mental health. And one of the things that we know from research is that mental health is positively impacted by looking after your physical health as well. So, Ed, are you with us?
I certainly am, Andy. Good morning.
Fantastic. Good morning, Ed. I'm going to hand over to you now, and you can fire away.
Excellent. Thank you. Right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for your time. Excuse the headset. I've got two rather enthusiastic cats nearby, and I didn't want them to impact on this, so I thought I'd keep it safe and headset up. So, as Andy touched on, I just wanted to have a chat with everyone today about keeping your physical and mental health in check. So, a little bit about myself. I've been working in the fitness industry as a personal trainer and a gym manager for 16 years now. And alongside that, which obviously links into what we all do for a living. I was a PE teacher for 8 years until very recently. So I feel that there's that crossover that I have a little bit of understanding at the very least, obviously the difference of working in a school to your average stressful job, shall we say. Before I get stuck in, I will, and it's a PowerPoint presentation, but as you'll see, it's really just to accompany some of the stuff I'm going to be saying. I don't want to make it too stat or science heavy, but as with a lot of things that are based around sort of physical health, some statistics are often very useful for this. So I currently work for Schools Advisory Service as one of their resident personal trainers. So we offer, as one of our many wellbeing services, bespoke training advice. So that could be anything from helping someone feel a little bit healthier about themselves. So it might be encouraging them to, go for a walk every day, right up to one of our clients, a gentleman who works as a head of PE at a school. He trains at quite an elite level. He's an ex-footballer, so obviously he challenges me with a bit more in-depth sort of fitness advice that he needs. So we cover a whole gamut of different levels of fitness, ages, the lot. So it isn't just about whether you're going down the gym 5 times a week, etc., which you might quite rightly presume, someone being a personal trainer. But I think that PE teacher side of me sets me up well for sort of seeing a bit more of the full picture. So just to start off, quite an important question. How do you feel your own physical and mental health is, and obviously the school that you're at? Because working in schools is demanding. I know that for a fact. We as teachers and people involved in education, we concentrate and focus on the education, the physical and mental health of our students. We put that first, but we do have to think about our own physical and mental well-being. The knock-on effect, which I'll come to later, is, with our own families, with how well we do our job. So it is actually important to think about ourselves, which I suppose we tend to be a little bit others focused, don't we, in schools? It is generally all about the kids. So thinking about yourself is important. A little bit of science. A few of you might have heard of something called cortisol. It's basically kind of a backup fuel tank. So when you're stressed or you're put under pressure, our body secretes more cortisol, which is an important hormone made by adrenal glands, which helps regulate your blood sugar, fight infections, a host of other functions. It's kind of, like I said, like a backup tank. So that sounds all well and good. What's the problem? Like with most good things, you can have too much of it. So if you're under duress for too long, so you're burning the candle at both ends, you're not getting that time to de-stress, just constantly thinking about work, because your body's pumping out cortisol, this will increase your blood sugar levels, but to a point where almost like a mild sort of diabetic episode, you'll have that feeling of almost jittery energy. I think we've all been there, where your school day is going along, you're under stress, but you feel it's going well because you're feeling energized, your back's against the wall. There's always a downside, that raised blood sugar then crashes down and you go from feeling brilliant to awful. I suppose from a personal point of view, my interview at my last school that I was at for 3 years, I remember applying for the job, going in for the interview. PE teachers' interviews are strange because you've got your suit on, doing the official interview work, and then you're asked to don your PE kit and teach a lesson. So it's quite an action-packed process. And at the end of the day, fortunately, it wouldn't be such a good story, would it, if I didn't get the job? I got the job. And I was all keen and ready to go. I said to my new head of department when I'd heard the good news, when do you want me to start? I'm ready to go. And he was like, no, you need to go home. You're going to feel shattered after that. And I didn't really understand where he's coming from. I kind of thought, well, I'm feeling on top of the world. I want to impress. But he was correct. An hour later, as soon as I got home, I sat on the sofa and I don't remember anything for about 2 hours because I just fell asleep because my body had obviously dealt with that need for having to perform, but the downside was then I had a crash. And you can apply that to so many things in schools: parents' evenings, sports days, you know, obviously the academic year is always throwing these curveballs at us. So if you think about it, you're constantly having to pump cortisol into your body. Another side effect, as you can see on number 2, it can suppress your immune system. Amusingly, I thought this was initially unique to me when I first started out as a teacher on my first job. I was a non-qualified teacher in NQT at a pupil referral unit, which a phrase alone that all you guys would probably imagine sounds like a bit of a recipe for disaster. And it kind of was. It was a very stressful job. But I remember that first half term thinking, right, a week to go, lovely stuff. You know, one of the bonuses you hear everyone say about teaching is you get that kind of time off to yourself. It came, and you can probably guess the rest. It's quite common in education. That survival mode finished, and my body just said to me, right, well, we've been waiting for this moment. It's time for a week of illness. So I contracted a bug, and nothing dramatic, but that week that was perceived to be all singing and all dancing was just me shivering, looking rather sorry for myself on the sofa, because again, my body had had to deal with something that was stressful day to day for so long that when it eventually came to an end, it crashed. And this is the problem with cortisol and stress. And one of the main key factors of how it affects our health. And obviously the knock-on effect isn't just physical. You know, when you're stressed, you are more prone to getting, you know, depressed, down. And this is all linked to that key hormone cortisol. Your body just can't deal with too much of it at once. I mean, there are many negatives. I don't want to start too much of a downer, but yeah, it can affect your digestion. So if you have IBS or anything like that, you're sure to, when you're stressed, find those symptoms increase. And genuinely, sounds a bit dramatic, but you know, at the top end of it, if you're stressed for too long, without sort of trying to help combat it, you know, it increases your chance of heart attacks and strokes. So, you know, it's serious business. So, like I said in the slide before, looking after your own mental and physical well-being is very important. So, something a little bit more positive now. The mental health benefits of exercise. I only put mental health benefits because, you know, almost all of us would know that exercise is good for you. You know, it's good for your body, helps you stay healthy, stay fit. But the mental health benefits, some people forget about those. You know, it helps you stress, depression, anxiety, puts you in you often feel more energetic throughout the day. So that effect that it has is important, and exercise, I think, and working out all can be held as synonymous with it having to be really, really intense. You know, it's got to be running 5 miles till you're blue in the face, or lifting really heavy weights. It doesn't have to be that level. Exercise is, you know, staying active and being consistent with that. So intensity isn't always the key. It's been scientifically proven that, you know, mild or moderate exercise, 40 to 60% of your max, is optimal when it comes to reducing cortisol and your stress. Putting it in less scientific terms, it's purely because if you take your dog out for a walk, or, you know, close your living room door and do a 15-20 minute home workout, yes, you're not necessarily expending that stereotypical huge amount of calories that you think you might have to you know, expend to make it worthwhile, but that's not the point when it comes to mental health. It's about switching off. You know, if your body's busy, they often say, then obviously your mind is at rest. So if you're concentrating on what you're doing at hand for 20 minutes when someone on YouTube, or dare I say even our SAS Gym app, is telling you what to do, then obviously you're not thinking about that day at work that you've just had, or that you've got a parents' evening next week. It just gives you that switch off, and that is really important for looking after your mental health. Something that is getting more and more commonly known, that exercise increases the production of endorphins. They're the feel-good chemicals in your brain. Obviously, the fact that they're feel-good chemicals, you can tell they're good for you. They help you de-stress. They make you feel as if you've achieved something. They calm you down. They're the sort of counteractive element to cortisol to some extent. So by producing those, again, looking at times we're in now, you know, COVID-19, obviously high levels of stress with having to adhere to bubbles. I think the new thing I've been reading about and hearing from some of my ex-colleagues at schools that it's parents on the playground, I think, not keeping social distance. There's so many things at the moment to add to what is already a demanding job, that having that time to yourself is so important. It boosts your self-confidence, linked to the endorphins, but if you feel a bit fitter and you feel healthier, you've done something good for yourself. When I say your self-image will improve, not just looking in the mirror and thinking, looking sharp today, etc., which is no bad thing. If you've dropped a few pounds, I know over the first lockdown, despite my job role, and I do love exercise. I think it all threw us a bit that first lockdown. Had a bit too much to eat, etc., and the weight piled on a bit for me. I know that losing that over the sort of coming months and recent months, I felt better about myself. I think it's a feeling of well-being, which obviously links well to what we're all here for. Being physically and mentally fitter overall, people don't think it actually increases your performance levels at work. So if you're a back to the wall kind of person, just imagine if you felt that little bit less stressed, that little bit less harassed, you would probably, as a knock-on effect, be that little bit sharper and on your game. You wouldn't feel quite as foggy when you're under those levels of duress. And that's always a good thing, because like I said at the beginning, we are all centered on making sure that the students get their excellent level of education and their physical and mental well-being is spot on. So if you can increase that performance to help them with that, you're actually doing a better job when you're looking after yourself. And also, by no means a secondary reason, we all have a home and family life. I know for a fact that, especially at that mentioned first school, when it was very new to me, probably wasn't the best company when I came home. I think the thought of having long conversations with people was the last thing I wanted. I just wanted to de-stress, and I remember that getting to the gym, even though I probably skipped a few workouts because I was tired, we're all human, I know that I felt better. For me, the gym is like my place of my sanctuary. But for others, it might be just going for a run or a walk, having a kick about with your family, etc., in the garden. So having that time to give more to your friends and family is important as well. You want to come back and feel that you're working hard, but you're also contributing to your family life. And I suppose as a last thought on all of that, before I finish off, it's just to have a think. Bearing all these things in mind, there might be someone at your school that you think, they could do with looking after themselves a little bit more, giving themselves some me time, as is the popular phrase, but one that is very apt in this instance. Who do you think at your institution could do with a bit more time to themselves and could look after themselves a bit better? So, lastly, with all this bearing in mind, how could we at SAS help you? Well, I'm guessing a few of you out there are already Schools Advisory Service clients. So this service that we launched about 3.5 months ago, so it's relatively new, is included in your insurance package. So at the end, if you didn't know already, you'll see the contact details so you can get hold of me. But for those of you perhaps considering looking at getting a policy with us, it is one of our many wellbeing services that we offer as part of your package. And as you can probably imagine, working with sort of physical fitness and exercise, it links quite closely to our other wellbeing services. So I know our physio quite well now. I get quite a few referrals from him, as you can imagine, as people have gone from perhaps rehabbing through his exercises to going to the next step, which is to be more active in their rehabilitation. Then I can speak to him directly and we work together. And to be honest, same thing with nurses and counsellors. A lot of people, if they're already suffering from stress quite heavily, our counsellors might think that exercise would do them good. So they're all quite synergistic, the services. We all know each other very well in the wellbeing department for good reason. So bear in mind that they all complement each other. So the services that I'm in charge of, our Ask Ed service, is Ask Ed is an email service. So that is the email address, as you'll see, quite snappy. Lucky I've got a short first name. So people can contact me through the app or by email, and they put a request through. So it'll be their personal details, and then normally like a little tagline of, you know, would like to lose weight and feel a bit fitter and healthier, for example. Then we will contact them in the way that they would like. So many clients, and I prefer this, I think speaking is good, especially for first contact, because you obviously get a feel for how that person is. You can ask them a few more direct questions about their exercise history, because we try and offer a bespoke service. So for one person, they might love getting up at 6 in the morning and getting their exercise done there and then. Getting it out the way is a phrase I often hear, and I take no offense to it. And I understand that, but at the same time, some people might be more of a night owl, so they like to get in after work and do a workout. Some people might have home equipment. Some people might love cardio. The list goes on, as you can imagine. So I feel that what we offer is that each person is unique, each case is unique, and how we help them is completely unique as well. So there isn't too many sort of parameters, and I don't like a one size fits all. I think that's why personal training exists, if I'm honest, because there's plenty of content out there online to tell us how and when and what we should do. But that human touch still hasn't been yet replaced. And well, obviously, I hope it doesn't. The second, ongoing support, is exactly what it sounds like. So we have no limit, as it were, on it's not you have a consultation with someone, help them out with a workout plan, and that's it, goodbye. I personally often ask someone when they'd next like to hear from me and how. So there are some clients I speak to weekly. And obviously, the more you speak to someone, it isn't necessarily just about, oh, how was your workout? Thanks, goodbye. You get to know that person, you know, and that's one thing I do love about the job. I think that if someone's giving you the privilege to trust you to help them exercise, then knowing them a little bit more, I think definitely helps. And I suppose drawing from my experience as both a PE teacher and a trainer, that's actually an important part of it, is that human element, because yeah, exercise is personal. Obviously, I speak to a lot of people and have dealt with people in the past that are a little, you know, embarrassed or shy about it. So making them feel at home is important. And we obviously do that with our ongoing support, which could be by phone call, email. I've got a work phone. Quite often I found that with schools being so busy at the moment and up in the air with things with COVID, often a text message is useful, whether that's to sort out a time to chat or indeed it's just more convenient for that person. We try and, you know, accommodate our clients. And lastly, I mentioned it in passing, but we do have an SAS Gym app. But I like to think that the difference we have is that it's not just an app that we've bought and it's got loads of workouts that are, you know, available for anyone. I take pride in, I plan all my workouts. So we have anything from a 15-minute blast up to a 6-week course that we ran when we first launched. We do advanced, beginners, intermediates, and also, which we've had really good feedback with, we try, and I'm pretty sure that I can't think of any workout that I haven't done this, we provide a video walkthrough. So rather than it being a faithless app with a picture of a little stick man doing the exercise, admittedly with excellent form, as he always seems to do, it's having, again, that personal touch that, you know, someone's constructed this for a reason, and I talk people through it. And in some of the longer workout plans, I might even say have 2 or 3 videos to help them along the way as they sort of reach their first week, second week, etc. So I suppose all in all, as you can see, that it's very much a personal touch, and that's something we're very proud of, and I've been, you know, very lucky to have been part of, to be honest. And yeah, so I hope I'll come to the last part. That's my ugly mugshot. Not the most photogenic of gentlemen, as you can see, but it's importantly got my details, the Ask Ed email address for our clients, and anyone who has any inquiries about this or any of our services, that's our phone number there. And thanks to our very skilled head of marketing, she showed me how to get the iPhone app and make it all look very pretty, etc. So I hope that's given you an insight into not only what we do, but obviously considering your own and your school's mental and physical health. And obviously I'll get out of this now and see if there's any questions.
Thanks for that, Ed. I've put a link to your Ask Ed page in the chat so that people can access it. Could you stop sharing? I'm seeing two of myself, and one is enough.
I did so well on the technology until then. There we go. Sorry, Andy.
We have a number of people who are leaving us now, because we did say we'd finish at about 11:05. Just for the people that remain, just to let you know that the services that Ed's been talking about, SAS have a suite of services that are available. Ask Ed is just one of them, because as an organisation, we believe that it's far more important and productive, instead of, as an absence insurance company, instead of actually paying money back to schools for people who are off so you can replace them, actually it's better to put the money in up front and actually prevent people from going off in the first place. And that's philosophically where we are as a company. We want to keep your staff in school. We want that continuity of learning for the kids. And this is our way of doing it. Last year, we put £4 million into wellbeing for client schools across the year in all of our 4,000 schools. So, you know, we are putting our money where our mouth is, and Eddie's part of that. Eddie's part of the team that will help to support your wellbeing for your school as a client school. If you'd like to know any more about that, please do contact me, and I can ask one of my colleagues to give you a quote. But we have a huge range of services, as Ed was saying, and some of those we'll be talking in the weeks ahead. Thank you, Ed, for that. Just before we go, I'm conscious of time, but next week we have Frederica Roberts joining us, who wrote the book I told you about, For Flourishing's Sake. She's got 15 minutes next week, and you'll be able to pick her brains. We've got Jan Rudge from Leadership Edge, Dr. Sheila Ross from the Foundation for Positive Mental Health, Sunita Bagri and Steve Waters from Teach Well Alliance. We've got Wendy Jagger talking about the Ninja Warrior Kids Wellbeing Workshops, and we've got June Braid from Schools Advisory Service, who will be talking about mindfulness. So hopefully you'll be able to join us next week. If you haven't been able to attend all of the meeting, don't worry about it. There will be a recording that's on our website on the National Wellbeing Partnership page. If you look for webinars, there'll be a recording on there. If you've been with us all morning, well done. You're due a cup of tea and a pat on the back, because that's been a long stint this morning, but I hope you found it useful. Any feedback you might have, please do drop that feedback into the chat bar before you go, and hopefully we can see you all next week. You're doing an amazing job in schools. Keep going, and we'll be here next week to try and help you, provide you with some more ideas about how potentially you can support wellbeing in your schools. Thanks for being with us this morning, and have a good week.